Hey, I'm Sadi, short for Saddest My Cup of Tea, and with the recent release of its second season, it's time for us to talk about Boku no Kokoro no Yabayatsu again with this new Yamada Anna prize figure from Sega's Luminasta figurine line. This is the second time we're getting a proper Yamada Anna figure, and the first one to be based off the anime, and while I'd love to give context as to what the Luminasta label actually means, if my totally accurate research says anything, there really isn't any sort of description for the line. But that won't stop me from making this review. We'll just be going into it without any informative context or expectations. First, of course, we have to open this very nice looking box that I really looked forward to making an unboxing of, but I quickly found out that when I opened the figure that I was beat to the punch by the people who sold it to me. Please don't do this, sellers. Inside of the box, you'll find the figure in 3 distinct parts, but assembly is incredibly easy. And once assembled, what we get is a pretty good looking Yamada Anna, which is a surprise as the promotional images really didn't do this figure much favors. When this figure was solicited online, the reception wasn't the best, at least in the English-speaking community. Someone literally just commented "yikes" on the MFC page, which for as funny as that is, really shows how the figure wasn't painted in a very good light right off the bat, especially as the Sega PM figure has been out for a year and is already pretty cromulent. But having her in hand, it's pretty safe to say that this figure looks quite nice. From her proportions to the amount of detailing, this figure is lovingly bold, loud, and gorgeous. As this figure is quite a recent release, it's of course based off the first season of the anime, which in turn is also based on the early manga chapters, meaning that she doesn't have her blazer or cardigan on, instead displaying her beautifully made blouse. It sounds weird the fact I'm gushing about this, it's superficially just a uniform. But as an artist, I know the difficulty of doing natural folds, and the sculptors for this did a great job showing off how the thin and loose material works. It's just impressive with how you can see all the folds, the depth, the flow, the direction, and even the shape of the body underneath, which is also very well sculpted. Notice the collarbone and the hands. It's not incredibly groundbreaking stuff per se, but I feel like this is something the sculptors work hard on and are proud of. It's possibly one of the most eye-catching aspects of the figure. All that, and it doesn't even overpower much of the actual detailing. Things like the buttons, placket, and the breast pocket, they're still distinct and readable shapes even with all this detail going on. And I think the reason as to why this looks as good as it does is due to the paintwork. While the figure is mostly unpainted, with the only bits of added color being the finer details like the outdoor shoes, the socks, and her unique moles. When you look at her, there's quite a noticeable varnished satin texture throughout the figure, with the only obvious exception being the hair, which has been painted with a shinier finish that contrasts really nicely against the matte coated uniform and the flat finished skin. That, along with the distinct strands flowing in the wind, it really turns your attention to her smooth and long dark colored hair. The only downside to the paint on the hair is that it further smooths out the already softer sculpt of the hair, which is especially noticeable on her bangs that cover up the eyebrows on her otherwise amazing looking face. I adore how her face looks. It's an excellent 3D representation of a 2D design. It's almost a spitting image of anime Yamada Anna, with her big round eyes and wide smile coming off with an adorably ditzy and bubbly expression, very true to her character and not at all like the freaky promotional images. I'd say it's almost a perfect rendition of Yamada, with the only real issues being in the paint department. Applications in her mouth look rather heavy and is the only case of paint mishaps, while the blush is so bright and scratchy. Up close she looks like she's been injured. Much of this face paint job really lacks subtlety. In general, the figure's quality is a bit on the cheaper side as it is a prize figure, so while I'm not excusing it, it is more understandable that we have flaws like different mold lines scattered throughout the figure and the visible orange peel texture throughout the painted and varnished parts. I mean, it's what we've come to expect from prize figures. It's not even that bad quality-wise, but it is important to mention as I know some collectors are rather critical. Then there's the pose, which may be a bit off-putting at first, seeing as I'm not exactly sure what she's doing here, but this pose actually works perfectly for Yamada's character. She may just be standing there, but her body language still has a dynamic flow, bringing out how lively, bouncy, and energetic she really is, and even with one of her legs up, she's still quite well balanced and very secure on the base. And on the base, she stands at around 19.5 centimeters, which is the taller side of what we take a look at here on the Sadi channel, being around the size of the Furyu Takaradarika, and also next to the Sega PM figure Osuki Mamaho and the Figma Styles female body Chiaki. Because I have him, here she is to my Nesoberi Ichikawa Kyotaro, but I know the comparison you all want to see is between her and the Sega PM figure Yamada Anna. Really, I'd say it's a fruitless task to compare these two. They're like polar opposite sides of a spectrum. One of them focuses on being manga faithful and even an adaptation of the second volume's cover art, while the other is faithful to the anime style and maintains a level of originality that brings out her personality. To put it simply and not sound like a Dr. Seuss book, they're different figures and go for the one you prefer stylistically, even though technically and objectively, the Luminasta one is superior. So, as for my final thoughts, it's a humble piece that, while not necessarily a collection showstopper, still has a few ambitious tricks that were pulled off quite well, giving this figure its own charismatic quality. It's not impervious to its flaws, but do keep in mind that it's a cheap prize figure, and for what it is, I'd still consider this gorgeous and a beauty. I'd easily recommend this to anybody interested in it, as either a BokuYaba fan swayed by this figure's charm, or even just an intrigued collector who thinks this just looks really damn good. Personally, I quite enjoy her, and she's a welcome addition to be my second piece in my fast-growing BokuYaba collection.
I don't even know where to put her anymore.
I'll miss having money.